So in the first game Leela was white and Stockfish was black, and we get into this Lc0 Indian variation, and both sides are doing relatively even here. So c takes d5, knight takes d5, and queen b3 from Leela. So bishop c5 attacking the knight, and now Leela plays a very interesting move, bishop takes d5. Better could have been just playing knight c2 to get out of these complications, and after knight c6 play bishop d2, and black could just follow up with bishop b6, and the game's relatively even. But after bishop takes d5, black now takes on d5, and Leela here plays bishop to e3. And after bishop takes d4, bishop takes d4, white's got quite a strong bishop on d4 now. After knight c6 attacking it, rook d1 to defend. Stockfish now plays bishop h3, stop white castling. And now Leela comes in for this variation, knight takes d5. Stockfish now plays bishop to g2. But here, white now plays a very complex move, bishop takes g7, protecting the knight on d5 with the rook. If black, say, takes on g7 first, white can now play queen c3 check. After a move like f6, can play knight to f4. And after queen takes d1, king takes d1, bishop takes h1. We get into a similar position to the game, but now white can come in with knight to e6 check. After king moves, just take on f8 and recapture. So it's 3 pieces for the queen, with white having a lot of pawns, and both sides seem to give white the edge here. So after bishop takes g7, Stockfish took on h1 with the bishop, and now Leela plays knight f6 check. So the king's forced to take that bishop, and here comes rook takes d8, and after rook a d8, knight h5, king g8, f3. White's actually doing slightly better here now. After rook d6, here Leela plays queen to e3, and I think she should have played maybe queen takes b7. After knight e5, the variations give queen b4 as a good move. And after doubling rooks, queen c3 is a move. f6 is also given, but after knight takes, rook takes and queen takes, and after g4 here, you have to say white has a good advantage. So black's got the 2 rooks, white has the queen, but white just has so many more pawns, and this bishop on h1 is never getting out of the corner unless it sacrifices itself. But queen e3 was played by Leela, and now h6, king f2, rook fd8, and here queen c1 is another move Leela could have played. After knight e5, queen c3, bishop takes, queen takes e5, bishop takes, rook f6, king e1. The position is really even, so it seems like Leela could have had a draw if she really wanted to. Instead, here h4 was played, and now knight d4 from Stockfish, queen e5, and king f8 from black. Here Leela played queen g7, after king e7, knight f4. Rook f6 in the game, knight h5 attacking the rook moves back, knight f4 again. After rook f6, Leela could have repeated moves here if she wanted to, so it could have been a draw. Instead she played queen h7, playing on. After rook f5, here king g1 was a move that they could have played. After knight takes e2, king takes, knight takes f4. This could have been a game, but here it's just a draw because rook d1 check, king h2, and it's perpetual. So again, Leela could have gone for the draw with that move as well, king g1 here. Instead she played e3, attacking the knight, and we're getting to this variation now. Rook takes f4, e takes f4, bishop takes f3, and we're getting to this endgame with rook d5, and all these moves are played, so a lot of checks. I'll just go forward a bit, so check, the king moves, and this is actually a drawn endgame. Both sides give this as even until we get into this position where the king's in the back rank. So here, queen takes a7, rook h7, king g8, f5. So the queen's attacked. Now the best move that white can play here is just queen takes h7, and it would have been a draw. After knight f6, king g7, bishop takes, and we're getting to this endgame where both sides get a queen. But after queen f5, black's just going to keep on checking white for ages, and it will just be a draw by perpetual eventually. Instead though, here Leela actually blundered. She played queen a6, and this just leads to a bad position. After knight e7, rook king f8 is forced, rook f7 check, king e8, and now just rook f6. And after king takes the knight, Stockfish captures, and it's game over for white. Leela plays h5, and after bishop takes h5, Leela resigns. So unfortunately it was just that queen a6 move that undid all of Leela's hard work. Hello everyone, in game 2 Stockfish is white and Leela is black. And Stockfish plays e4, and we get a Rai Lopez, bishop b5, knight f6, d3, bishop c5, and white opts to take this knight on c6. So Leela recaptures, and after castles, queen e7, knight bd2. This is all standard stuff, bishop g4, h3, bishop h5. And rook e1 is played. It's supposed to play knight f1, so knight d7, a4, and a5, c3, and white's going to try and build upon the queen side, and black's going to try and, well, just stay solid. Queen c2, castle's queen side, and knight h4 from Stockfish. And here Leela plays bishop f7, which is a fine move. So knight f5, attacking the queen, queen f8, and b3. And here Leela plays knight b8, knight c4, and black now opts to take this, so that knight would cause a lot of problems. So b takes, and g6, kick this knight away, knight h4, and queen f7. Knight f3 from Stockfish, and now black's gaining a decent attack on the king side with g5, but Stockfish also has a nice attack on the queen side. So rook b1, h5, and here white crashes open the centre with d4, so e takes, c takes, and the bishop's forced to move to b4, which is not bad because it blocks the b file and also attacks this rook, so it moves to d1. And here I think rook he8 was played in the game. Knight a6 is also a move recommended by Stockfish. After d5, queen g6, and it sort of puts white in a bit of a strangle because that e4 pawn's quite weak now, and the queen on the g6 pins it to the c2 queen. If knight d4, black can start an attack with g4, and h4 to block it, and we have this nice pocket for the knight on c5. Again, white also has a nice space for their knights, and for rook he8 is quite an even game where black has a slight edge. In the game though, Leela played rook he8 straight away, and rook b3 was played. Here queen g6 again is recommended, and after rook e3, b6, g3, king b7, we get into a relatively even game. Instead Leela played knight d7 here, getting the knight out, potentially opting to play c5 at some point. But bishop b2 is played, and rook e7 trying to double the rooks, rook e3, rook de8, and now white plays d5. And here another move suggested by Stockfish is g4 now straight away. After knight h4, Leela could play bishop c5, attacking the rook, and if it moves to e2, we can gain it in on the black squares with knight e5. After takes, and king h2, king b8 and f4, takes and f4, knight takes f3, and we can move the rook back as Leela. D takes c6, just play b6. And we get into quite an even position now. So after rook d5 from Stockfish, queen e6 could have been played, and we get into this interesting endgame where white now could potentially push his h-pawn up the board, but all white's pawns on e4, c4 and a4 look relatively weak, and black's got domination over the black squares. Instead though, Leela plays bishop c5 straight away, but now just comes bishop to d4. And after bishop b4, c5, it looks as though white's making some progress here. But Leela counteracts this with g4 now, attacking the knight, and it drops to h4. And c takes d5 is played, e takes d5, and rook takes e3, bishop takes e3. And here is where actually Leela made the most fatal mistake. So white's got a good attack here against black, so it would be in black's best interest to dominate the centre with knight to e5, preventing this c6 move. Here d6 could have been played, but after g takes h3, say knight g6, again black can't take this knight on g6 due to d7, but they can play queen to d7 now. And if so I move like knight takes e5, f takes, g takes h3, takes on d6, takes on d6 check. After the smoke's cleared and it's a relatively equal position, queen takes a4 will be played next, and even though white's got a pawn quite far up the board, black should be able to hold this. In this blitz game though, Leela now played king b8, and this was the fatal mistake. After c6 crashing in, knight e5 is played. But after queen e2, white's now coming in to b5, threatening mate on these squares on b7. So b takes c6, and now just queen a6. And this bishop on e3 is now raking down. Just going to play bishop to a7 check next move. So c5 is played to block it. d6 now from Stockfish. And rook d8 from Leela. Knight f5 is now played, getting the last piece into the game from Stockfish. This is a great example of how to attack your opponent actually. So queen d7 to attack the knight. And now just comes a really clever move. Just h takes g4, h takes g4, and bishop takes c5. And black's struggling for moves now. So black can't take this knight due to just like queen a7 check, king c8, and queen takes c7 is mate. So instead bishop takes c5 is played, rook b1 check, bishop b4 to block, and Stockfish cleverly just plays queen takes a5, attacking this bishop on b4 with two pieces, getting their piece back. Knight d3 is played by Leela to defend it, but just queen d5 attacking the knight now. Black's happy to give this knight back, but Stockfish is having none of it, just takes his pawn on g3. After king a7 to get off the b file, just knight d4. White just completely ignores his knight. Stockfish has got one in position. So after rook b8, knight b5 check, rook takes b5 interestingly enough, and just a takes b. And here Leela resigned because white's got such an overwhelming position. For instance, if just like carries on with bishop c5, king f1, where does black go now? If c takes d6, let's say, just rook a1, king b6, and rook a6 check. The king's forced back, and white just cleans up with queen takes d3, so it's game over. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed these two fascinating games. It looks like Stockfish won 2-0, but I don't think this is the strongest Leela we've seen. This was just version 42,000, so I'm sure there's stronger versions out there. Please let me know in the comments if I should pick a particular version to play Stockfish 10. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.